UFC Fight Night, Mexico City, Brandon Moreno, Lanier Kavanagh. I like this matchup, old guard versus new guard. These are the matchups that I used to get really excited about, because I feel like anytime the sport gets a new era of athlete, it just takes it to a new level. So Kavanagh was a guy I wasn't quite sold on, at least early in his UFC tenure. He's still early in his tenure, but he's had a good amount of fights now. I think it was the Felipe dos Santos performance, that really showed me that this guy has some real chops. Because I mean, Felipe showed his worth against Manel Cop, and that was impressive to me. Kavanagh has a full skill set here. His kickboxing is fantastic too. He's speedy on the feet, powerful, great shot selection with this guy. Good low kicks, good elbows. His kickboxing is on point, and he can also box pretty well. I mean, his head movement leaves something to be desired. So maybe Moreno can exploit that. When we're talking about Brandon Moreno, we're talking about a serious veteran. I mean, he's grizzled to say the least. He's gone through multiple championship fights with Figgy in Figgy's prime, and that's nothing to scoff at. Some people don't like Moreno's style, which is confusing to me because I think Moreno, at the end of the day, is a finisher. I mean, this is a guy who got dropped from the UFC, and then came back just in a whirlwind. And the draw against Askarov, I thought that should have been his fight. And Askarov was a pretty hyped wrestler at that time. Moreno actually doesn't have a great record in Mexico City. I think it's like one win, two losses, one draw. So it's not like he gets so much of the hometown cooking here. I don't know if that's because of the tough matchups. Maybe he just doesn't acclimate as well as others, but I don't think his cardio has ever been something to question, really. It's more so how he adapts to guys. I mean, Albazi, he looked fantastic against because Albazi's very one dimensional, kind of easy to just tee off on because Albazi's not great at any single thing. He's just good at a few things. He's a good grappler, he's a good boxer, good power, great durability, but his skill set is lacking. When you put him in there against Tyra, I mean, that was kind of like a stalemate on the feet. And then once Tyra got it to the ground, bam, done. People complain about the finish, but Tyra would have got it done eventually. I've been lucky enough to read the end of Moreno's career much better than the beginning of his career, and that's not saying much in this prediction game. You have to get as lucky as you are skilled at reading fights. So Kavanagh was a guy again who didn't impress me much, but his last few performances have impressed me, even in the Charles Johnson loss. I'm not going to take too much from that. I think Charles Johnson is going to retire with a few fantastic wins on his record that really look like they supersede anything he should have probably accomplished. I mean, basing it on his last performance, getting destroyed by a veteran in Alex Perez, it just kind of shows his skill level. But when he can use his length against a guy who's mostly a pure striker, you notice he thrives in those matchups. Joshua Van, Lanier Kavanagh. And he finishes these guys, which is super interesting. Kavanagh was still very green in his career. I think that loss showed him more than anything a win could have showed him. It showed him that he's not invincible. I've seen him get tagged on the regional scene. That's why I wasn't so much impressed with him early on. I thought his striking had something to be desired. I thought his durability had a lot to be desired. That's actually why I picked against Kavanagh in a good few of his fights. I even took Ochoa against him. And that was a very close fight, but Ochoa is just a dangerous, dangerous fighter, an absolute dog in the cage. So, what I've seen from Kavanagh lately, which is crazy because this is a guy I went from doubting entirely to really believing in. And his striking skill set, when you look at the metrics, their striking defense is very similar. Their output is very, and I'm talking about Kavanagh and Moreno. Very similar metrics. Now, obviously, Moreno has had a very long, illustrious career against fantastic, high level guys. But still, Kavanagh has fought some solid contenders in there. And I mean, I think Ochoa is extremely dangerous. Felipe dos Santos held his own against Cop. Charles Johnson has had great moments in the cage. And in considering the metrics, I mean, this is a much closer fight than what the odds makers have pinned it at. I know the odds makers are accounting for the short notice, etc., but that might play to Kavanagh's favor more so than it plays to Moreno's. We've seen a lot of these guys especially veterans. You know, they like to stick to game plans. They like to do what they've been doing their whole career. And you have this young guy in Kavanagh who's just taking a risk here. Really nothing to lose. If he loses to Moreno, whatever. It's a considered a top tier guy still for the division. And when you really look at it, I mean, Moreno wings punches. Like, he really does wing punches trying to knock you out. And he's also taking this fight very shortly after getting stopped by Tyra. You know, Tyra landed a lot of good damage on the ground. Moreno didn't put up too much resistance. Who knows where his head is at? Because even a few fights ago, he was talking about retiring, things like that. I just think Kavanaugh has nothing to lose, and plus 250, almost plus 300, whatever. And Moreno will probably get steamed even higher because people are going to say, look, Moreno's got too much experience for the kid. He can take it down to the ground if he needs to. I don't know if that's true, though. Kavanaugh's got extremely high takedown defense. So I think that this fight is going to stay on the feet. And if it stays on the feet, that gives Kavanagh every shot in the world. He's only 6 years younger, but Moreno's way older in fight years, in my opinion. Moreno's got 3 inches of reach, which is good, and an inch of height, which will help him. But I think Kavanagh uses his weapons better. I think Moreno wings a lot of shots, as I said. And when Moreno gets tagged and he can't figure guys out, he stagnates. He really looks confused in there sometimes, especially against Figgy in a couple of those fights. I mean, the fight in which Figgy beat him really just beat him on the feet pretty easily, and Moreno looks stumped. Now, I think Moreno's going to have his best luck on the ground if he can somehow exploit that. And I could be reading this completely wrong, obviously. It wouldn't be new to me to read something completely wrong. But man, I like Kavanagh in this fight. I'm going to take Kavanagh in this fight. I'm not saying he'll stop Moreno or anything like that. But being a young, hungry guy in this division means a lot right now. Great output, great technique. I got to rock with Kavanagh. That's just how I'm feeling. So it was an inclination from the start, and in restudying the card, it's even more solidified. So let's take Kavanagh there. Co-main event: Marlon Vera versus David Martinez. This should be a fun little banger. Marlon Vera, man, he's lost a step or two or three or four. I mean, that Eamon Zahabi loss was not good. Somehow Marlon Vera gets splits. I'll never forget how he beat Song Yadong. Surely they took it from him. The Eamon Zahabi loss was a split, even though I thought Eamon pretty clearly won. And the thing about Vera is, like, he just doesn't really have much power. He had a nice little resurgence, knockouts against guys who probably shouldn't have been fighting anymore, like Dom Cruz, etc. But his power's not really there. And I think that's the only thing that would really deter David, because if we're talking about a fight that stays on the feet for 3 rounds, David Martinez has him all day long. I mean, that Rob Font performance was fantastic. I was lucky enough to take David in that fight as well. And I was like, I think Rob Font's age is going to show. But it wasn't so much Rob Font's age as it was David Martinez just being a fantastic striker. Movement is awesome, really fights well off the back foot. Oh man, I just feel like David is gonna tee off on him. If Marlon is able to just kind of find himself again, he could definitely get the takedowns going, because David is a pure striker, pure and simple. That's why I don't know his ceiling in the division, especially at bantamweight, where guys can really grapple, really wrestle. But none of that matters. This guy is an elite striker, and Cheeto's honestly just a perfect guy you want to put against a young guy who has great volume in David Martinez. Very accurate, great striking defense on this guy. The metrics are really there for him. So, and it's beyond metrics. It's just watching Cheeto's last few performances, seeing that he's lost a step. Ever since the second O'Malley fight, it just felt like that was just too much punishment on him. Even though he's always been a glutton for punishment, incredible chin on this guy, up and down fighter. Marlon Vera's really got to. And he loses the first round in every fight, pretty much. He always loses the first round, and that's so bad against David, who builds momentum so well. If he's able to tag Marlon early, he's only going to build in momentum. And then as soon as Marlon's figuring him out, he's just going to get teed up on and maybe make the third round close if he finally decides to get a takedown. But that's just Marlon's fighting style. I don't think he'll ever change. So as he's figuring David out, he's going to be eating a lot of punches for his time. So, Yeah, got to go with David Martinez there. I mean, Cheeto's chin is legendary, so I'll take the decision there. I'm surprised David only opened like minus 150, something like that. It felt like a bargain to me, especially with the state of Cheeto. He slowed down a ton, so we'll see how that goes. David Martinez decision. Daniel Zellhuber versus King Green. No more Bobby, just King. Bobby, man, he's had some terrible performances lately. He's also had some good ones. The Jim Miller performance really stands out, but that just tells me that Jim Miller was at the end of his rope, a 40 something year old guy who just really should probably be retired because that's really the only standout performance King has had lately. Even the Gibson Jr. fight, it just looked like he had a hard time pulling the trigger. That might have been because Gibson Jr. took the fight on short notice and it was hard for Green to adjust game plans, something like that. But that's just me making excuses for why King looked terrible in that one. And it's not like he looked terrible. He just could have pulled the trigger so much more. I mean, there were moments where Gibson was just staring at him and King is just walking him down, not really doing anything. You're like, dude, what happened to the volume? What happened to the takedowns? King's always been a pretty well-rounded fighter, maybe not in terms of like takedown defense, but offensively, definitely has a full arsenal. Sneaky power, fantastic volume, always been a solid cardio guy, always had solid takedowns too, really good jiu-jitsu as well. Um, Honestly, Zellhuber's unimpressive to me at all. Like he's just not impressive to me at all. He does have 13 years of youth on King, 6 inches of reach, a couple inches of height. He's got all those advantages, but he almost kind of feeds into the brawl. I mean, that Ribovic fight was incredible. He dropped Ribovic, was really able to put on a lot of damage early, and then almost got finished himself late. Now, if this was Prime King, King could probably take the damage early and then turn it up late, but I'm not so sure he can take the whirlwind that Zellhuber is. Zellhuber also has solid ground game. He's learning himself. He's a younger guy. He's massive for the division. It's in Mexico City, which I think does favor Zellhuber at this point in time, although both guys have good cardio. But you can argue Zellhuber's volume is going to be there more so than King's, at least from what we've seen lately, because the guy's almost 40. Part of me wants to take King Green. I feel like if Zellhuber can take the L's to Michael Johnson, who dropped him and made Zellhuber look all out of sorts in there, it was really a bad look. I feel like if MJ can do that, King can probably do that. So I'm going to take the decision here with Zellhuber, but and honestly, like pre-tape, it was more confident than restudying for the card. And but I don't always like restudying. I like to go off my instinct. My instinct tells me Zellhuber wins. But in looking at the metrics, looking at the losses, looking at the resume, I think a lot of people will take a shot on Green just because Zellhuber's unimpressive when you actually look at it all together. Um, because his wins, his losses to Trey Ogden, and beating guys like couldn't even beat Ribovic, who also couldn't beat Nasrat. It's like, what level are these guys really? But Zellhuber is growing. He's a growing product. You kind of have to have faith that he is evolving somewhat. And again, it is in Mexico City, but I don't see any outstanding performance from Zellhuber. I just see like a workman-like decision. So we'll take a chance on that because Zellhuber is the favorite. If you're throwing something on Green, it's not a problem. He's one of the dogs that I would open myself up to. I can open my heart up to that, but Zellhuber is the play for me. Edgar Cháirez versus Felipe Bunes. Excuse the theme. Some of the themes are a little off. I'm just trying to go with that neon style. This one looks a little lazy on my part. But regardless, Cháirez and Bunes, what's interesting is resume wise, these guys are kind of similar. They've only really lost to the best in the division. But when you look at their singular wins, they're terrible. I mean, you got Felipe Bunes, his recent win, Jose Johnson, but he's losing to only really the best of them. Cháirez in the same boat. Only losing a solid guy his entire. You can argue Cháirez probably has better cardio, maybe a bit more durable on the feet. Is a little too reliant on like basic chokes though, guillotines, going to his back, wins over Lacerda, really not that impressive. I believe he beat Vergara too. Not entirely impressive to me. So both of these guys are in the same boat where they really only lose to the best, but we've never seen them beat like a solid dude. They've only beat the low ranks and then get matched up against the elite guys. So we don't really know how good they are. Cháirez, I was actually watching his fight versus Yanni Vasquez, who was the guy who took the fight on short notice versus Javid Basharat, which is a fight that actually got Javid cut and will probably give Vasquez a solid career because he looked like he wanted to be in there. Now, Vasquez actually gave Cháirez a ton of trouble on the feet, walked him down with the hands, and Cháirez got him in the fourth with a sub, but I felt like Vasquez was probably winning that fight. If it was a 3-rounder, it would have gone to Yanni. So I don't know what that means per se, but it just means like Cháirez does take a while to get going. And it's not like Felipe has incredible hands or anything. The guy's a solid grappler, though. I mean, a real high level black belt. And I've been going back and forth on this one, because you look at Cháirez's record, you're like, he only loses to the best. Well, you can say the same about Felipe. And I know Felipe's 36 at flyweight, not the best look, but I feel like Felipe is usually the smaller guy for some reason, but he's really not. They're the same height. 2 inches shorter in reach, but man, he's actually more accurate. He's got solid defense. His takedown accuracy isn't great, but he's also fought good dudes in there. Cháirez doesn't really go for takedowns. He's kind of relaxed and he's okay with guys pressuring him as long as he can get that choke in. He can get those arm locks in. He's not proficient at knocking guys out, which is what I think you have to be against Felipe Bunes. I don't think that it's going to be an easy fight. I think Felipe will gas at some point, but whenever it's at elevation, I always put too much stock in the elevation. I think at the end of the day, who's going to win is the more skilled guy. We've seen that time and time again. Hell, you could go back to, I think the last Mexico City was 2019. Alexa Grasso, Carla Esparza in a retirement fight. Carla had no place winning that fight. She should not have won against Alexa Grasso, who went on to do great things and did great things in the division. But Carla won it. And you would think that Carla would gas, especially with that wrestling-oriented game plan, but nope. Felipe, obviously a different story, not a championship caliber fighter, also not fighting in women's MMA. I don't know though, I'm going to take a shot on Bunes here because I do think he is the more sophisticated grappler. And I mean, that's really all there is to it. I mean, he might gas out at 36. Sure, the elevation is going to play against him somewhat, but if he's just securing takedowns, it doesn't really matter, And one thing I've noticed about the elevation is you put too much stock into it one way and it affects both guys. I mean, Cháirez is obviously much more equipped for the elevation. And it's not like I'm saying Felipe Bunes is like a strong confidence play. It's just really the lesser of two evils here. I don't like how Cháirez is so comfortable going to his back in every fight. And if he's doing that, pulling some BS against Felipe, maybe he hurts Felipe a bit to the body or something early, and Felipe just looks a little rusty, and then he's going for a choke because I don't think Cháirez's IQ is that high in the cage. Could end up just being on his back for two rounds, and that's all that Bunes needs. I don't think Bunes is such a slouch on the feet, at least not enough for Cháirez to look, amazing in there. So I'm going to take a dog shot on Bunes. It's been a fight that's been bothering me. I feel like this is really like a paper play that Cháirez is the favorite because you just look at the resume, you look at the age, you look at the metrics, you're like, I could probably go with Cháirez there. But Bunes' metrics are kind of skewed because this guy can really dominate you. He can really sub you. Just sometimes he's getting finished himself, and that can skew with the metrics. It makes everything a little shorter. It makes everything a little condensed. But if you actually look at their skill sets, I think Bunes is far more skilled. And if he was just a few years younger, it'd be an easy play for me. But obviously, he's got cardio issues. Obviously, he's the older guy here. Gonna take the chance, though. All right, Imanol Rodriguez versus Kevin Borjas. Yeah, Imanol, I believe he was on The Ultimate Fighter. He had a very close fight with José Morales, who proved himself, won The Ultimate Fighter that season. Doesn't mean much to win The Ultimate Fighter anymore. The level of talent is not like the OGs, the old school days where we had some real legends in the house, But still, I think Imanol is a problem. Not necessarily big for the division, but he fights long and he's dangerous. Borjas actually has some advantages here. He has an inch of height, 4 inches of reach, which I was surprised to see. But I mean, the sheer output of Imanol and his shot selection is so slick. I love the guy's elbows. I love his aggression. Super tenacious in there. Borjas just doesn't really pull the trigger for me. If you are gonna take a shot on Borjas, I don't hate it. He's also one of the dogs that I can open my heart to. He's not severely, aging. He's not like 40. He has some good reach advantages here. He's going to be the bigger guy. My problem with Boros is he doesn't really pull the trigger in there, and his gas tank isn't great either. I think that Imanol is a much better athlete. It's very weird because, in looking at the resume and looking at the metrics, a lot of people are going to be on Borjas, but there's a reason Rodriguez is the big favorite here. His only loss ever in his pro career is that one to Joseph Morales, who is a sturdy fighter, a real veteran who can really grapple. I think Boras is going to be in trouble on the feet for the most part. And I like taking the more skilled guy. And Borjas, I think, will rarely be the more skilled guy in there. I've taken my shots on Borjas as an underdog through his career, and I've learned not to in this in this fight. Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe he was just green then and learning the ropes here. But a guy like Boras goes in there and fights the same way every time. So can't give the guy any more shots. He is the underdog here. People will surely be taking him, especially when they see that he's a bit he's a bit bigger and he's only 2 years older, and he's got a clean, he's got not a cleaner resume, but he's got experience. He's got experience now in the UFC. But when you actually watch the tape, I think Imanol Rodriguez, although he's only really been fighting bin men, on the Ultimate Fighter and outside it, I do feel like he's the much more skilled guy, especially on the feet, which is where this fight will stay. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna take Imanol Rodriguez there. Then Santiago Luna versus Angel Pacheco. Sorry, this one's a little hard to read. Ugh, that gets on my nerves. But I'll tell you right now, man. Santiago Luna. This is gonna be a scrap because Angel Pacheco. Like I remember that fight on the Contender Series versus Danny Silva, I believe it was. Danny Silva is a confusing fighter because I thought he was a grappler at first, and then he showed a lot of striking chops, especially against Pacheco. Pacheco is a hittable dude, but you're not getting rid of that guy. So if Luna is able to put him away, that's going to show us a lot. Luna is the younger man by a good few years. I believe Angel's like 34, Santiago's 21. That's a 13-year age gap. That could mean that Angel will show him some veteran savvy, but I just really like what I see from Santiago. He clips dudes at the ends of his shot. He's going to be the taller guy by a good margin. His reach isn't visible here, but I can imagine his arms are longer than Pacheco's. Pacheco really has to fight for everything in there, get in on the inside, make it an absolute brawl. Santiago's going to hit him with everything. And Santiago's got some wicked power, man. Like when he hits dudes, they feel it. He can kick you. He can hit you with elbows. He really does extend nicely. And he catches, I've already said this, but he catches dudes on the ends of his punches, which is so crucial. He's catching them with full extension, full power. Guy's got a lot of torque, man. And for his size, for the division, I feel like he's going to be really good at bantamweight. Don't know too much about his grappling. I don't think that'll matter against Angel. Angel's age and the damage he's going to take in the first round, I just don't even know if he can take over with cardio. It's always worth a shot. A lot of these guys are kind of debuting in the UFC. They're going to be extremely green. So there's going to be people taking a shot on Pacheco, taking a shot on Borjas. I don't hate that at all. But again, it's hard for me to take the less skilled dude. And Luna, I think, has the goods, man. Undefeated guy. Really good. You can tell this is a good matchup for him too, because even if he runs into some trouble with the cardio, Angel Pacheco is just a punching bag. So I think Luna's going to be able to get out of trouble just by doing what he does best, and that's punching hard, kicking hard. So he'll get himself out of tough spots with offense, and I like fighters like this, man. I really do. So hopefully he's not just kind of like a flash in the pan that looked pretty good. I rate him too. Pretty sure he stopped Kwong Lee in the first round, who isn't a great fighter per se, but has shown his chops in the UFC, and to get rid of him in the first round. Luna's a dog, man. Pacheco better be careful. I think Luna will stop him at some point. Even though Pacheco does like to come back in fights, I don't think it'll be a first round stoppage, but I think Luna's just going to put damage on him. And if it is a decision, it's going to be a beatdown. So Luna's got the size, he's got the skills. I like him in this fight. Let's move on. Much better thumbnail here. Ryan Gandra versus Jose Daniel Medina. Man, Jose Daniel Medina, those 11 wins, man. I don't know where they came from. 6 losses, a lot of them in the UFC, you know. I'm pretty sure he got signed to the Contender Series on a loss, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they gave him guys like a Teba Gautier, though. And then they actually gave him Zach Reese, which I felt like was kind of them testing Jose. How good are you? How bad are you? Zach Reese was a very low to middling guy when he fought. I think like Zach Reese has made a lot of progress, to be honest, since that fight. And Medina showed a lot of toughness in that one. Reese couldn't really put him away, but Reese couldn't put Todorovic away. I mean, Ateba really just murked Jose. I think that was an elevation as well. Medina, his only shot here is really just lasting through the first and then really just using all that experience, even though they're all losses, 4 to 5 losses in a row in the UFC he's taken. He's shown us not a lot either. He's shown us bad takedown defense, bad striking defense, not a ton of durability. He's shown us some heart though. But Ryan Gandra, I mean, on the Contender Series, this guy just looks like a monster. It looks like a terrible matchup for Medina on paper and in reality. I mean, Gandra also just throws it. Look at that significant strike rate. That is a ridiculous amount of volume. If he's not hitting you with the first shot, the second shot, the third shot, something's going to land in there. So Jose's best shot is that Gandra just throws a little too much, doesn't knock him out, and maybe Jose can take over getting a takedown. We've seen slight grappling chops from Jose out of desperation, but I don't really trust it. I don't trust his takedown defense, don't trust his durability, don't trust his quality at all. Don't think he's UFC level at all. Don't even know how he'll cope with the elevation. I do like Gandra here to finish Medina at some point, just because Gandra looks like a good prospect, and Medina, we've just seen enough of him. I just don't know if the experience in losing will help you, but it's in the way he's losing time after time, never really making adjustments at all. I think we've seen the last of Medina after this one, at least in the UFC. So go with Brian Gandra. I don't know if it'll be in the first round or something like that, because Gandra, things get weird at elevation and guys might pace themselves, but I definitely like Gandra to win the fight and finish the fight. All right, women's MMA, Ailín Perez versus Macy Chiasson. I was gonna make a 1 minute prediction for this one. I felt more confident prior than I did after really taking a closer look at the fight. Some of the metrics, these are hard to read. My apologies. Macy Chiasson does have 6 inches of height on Ailín. She's also got 6 inches of reach. That is a lot. It's going to be hard for Ailín to take her down. In my heart and my head, I think Ailín dogs Macy out. I think she has too much heart. I think Macy is somewhat of a mental, I hate to say mental midget, but she does quit when the going gets tough. I mean, she was dominating Aldana and then got up kicked to the liver. I know those shut you down, but she seemed just fine during the announcement. The winner being announced, when they announced Aldana as the winner. She seemed just fine, but it just seems like if she's in any peril at all, she's looking for a way out. She either dominates you or looks for a way out. I'm not impressed with Macy at all. She fooled me. I thought, after the Myra Bueno win, the way she got it done, wow, she's on a resurgence. They gave her Panty again. Did that in excellent form. Oh, wow, this chick might actually be taking it seriously. She has a win over Norma Dumont. Wow, Macy's really going for it. And then takes another couple losses in a row. Not a good look. Even losing to Giannis Santos. I mean, come on, Macy. It's just, I feel like it's just her career is just so topsy turvy. Does she take it seriously? I don't know. I was really thinking about this. How is she going to use those advantages or her assets to her advantage against Ailín? She would really, the way a bigger fighter like this, 5'11, you have 6 inches of reach on her, 6 inches of height, you just jab her face off, move around, jab her. Macy can't do that, you know? Macy's a bulldog, she likes to wrestle. She likes to get in the clinch. I think Ailín, being so short and compact and much stronger, could play to her. Now, obviously, memories of the Stephanie Egger fight come to mind, but that was a short notice fight for Ailín. So I'm going to just kind of scrap that, put that out of my mind, because her 5 fight win streak is just amazing. I mean, the Jocelyn Edwards performance, the Carol Hosa performance, she's putting really grindy performances on solid chicks. And Macy, I don't think has that in her. I don't think she has that grind in her. And maybe the elevation will get to Ailín at some point because she really does push all the cardio systems to max. But how's Macy gonna win? Is she gonna get her back? Maybe when Ailín starts the gas, maybe probably Macy gets her back, something like that, right? Just goes for the sub, goes for the finish, maybe gets a nice sweep, gets a nice throw on Ailín or a trip when Ailín is starting to gas a little bit. But I can see Macy getting her back and then Ailín just being too scrappy, turning out of it, getting top control. It's just, I think Perez is too much of a scrapper, too strong for Macy. And as weird as that sounds, I know Macy's a pretty big, strong girl, but Ailín runs into peril, whereas Macy runs away from it. So I was going to make Ailín a lock. The metrics scare me a bit, as does the elevation. But there's no way. The trajectory of Ailín, maybe this will be a tough loss. It is women's MMA. You can never count anyone in 100%. You can never count anyone out 100%. So I'm going to take Ailín, though. It is pretty confident. I was surprised she only opened minus 110. Looking at the metrics, I do see why and their stat lines and whatnot. But I gotta take Ailín there. She's just so much more of a dog. And sometimes it comes down to that. You know what I mean? As I've said enough about this one. I like Ailín there. All right, Cristian Quiñonez versus Kris Moutinho. I like this. I like this backdrop I got going there. Kind of like little Halo, a little Metal Gear Solid there. I like that. Cristian Quiñonez, Kris Moutinho. What's there to say? I know Cristian opened like 5-1 in this fight, which is absurd. I would never parlay Quiñonez. Just not happening. He's not skilled enough for me to ever do that at that price tag. If he made a minus 250, close to minus 300, fair play. 5-1, even against a guy like Moutinho, that's a no-go for me. Now, Quiñonez is going to have 2 inches of reach, an inch of height on him. At bantamweight, I think this is an interesting fight. Moutinho, I think, more or less has degraded, actually. I felt like he showed a lot more promise in that first fight against O'Malley than any other fight. It's almost like O'Malley's skewed game plan was more to more to favoring Moutinho than anything else, because when we saw him against what's his name? Vanetti, whatever. It doesn't even matter. 40-year-old guy, stops Moutinho in the first round. Guido Canetti, sorry. He stops Moutinho in the first round by strikes. Canetti was always a formidable guy, terrible on the ground, though. It just shows if you have any sort of power on the feet, you can probably just tear Moutinho apart. Even seeing Wellmaker losing to a guy like Ethan Ewing, Wellmaker very one-dimensional, not that impressive. It just shows if you do have power in your hands, you do have skill to finish. Like, you'll probably get Moutinho out of there, and that's what Quiñonez is. So although the odds are just painful, really painful to look at and hard to swallow, Quiñonez, I think, wins this fight 9 times out of 10. Moutinho is a southpaw, not really going to matter. I mean, that honestly makes him more open to shots. Usually a southpaw is trickier to orthodox guys. I think it just leaves him more open because all he does is he punches. He eats like an astounding, like it was like 15 to 16 strikes a minute. I mean, that is disgusting. And I just, that is so detrimental to his health and his career. And taking a guy like that would just be completely unprofessional on my part. Now, obviously, making MMA predictions, there's nothing professional about it, but it would just be a detriment to my overall picking career, as you could say. I mean, really, Moutinho taking that many strikes per minute, and most of them to the head, is absurd. So I'm going to take Cristian Quiñonez definitely by finish. I think anybody fighting Moutinho is definitely live to not only win, but definitely finish the guy. It's a shame. I mean, he's one of these guys that showed a lot of talent on the regional scene, and I don't like seeing a human punching bag. And I don't know if Moutinho would take offense to that himself, but it's like you really have to analyze the way you fight. And some of these guys are just fighters. They just go out there to fight. And that's what Moutinho is. And it shows that that works against a certain level. But even against Quiñonez, who got massacred by Kyung Ho Kong and Raoni Barcelos made it easy against him. But those are solid dudes. Even Kong, who was already 38, 39, maybe 40 at that time. Very slick veteran on the feet, power in the hands. Quiñonez was green in his career, and then Barcelos was just another tough matchup. And I think Quiñonez was actually not even that big a dog against Barcelos. For some reason, the odds makers like this Quiñonez guy. Like, they won't make him too big a dog against most guys, but they'll make him a massive favorite against guys who can't really hang. So I do like Quiñonez here. I do feel like he actually leans on his grappling and subs more to finish, as weird as that sounds. If Moutinho is just looking like a bobblehead out there and just tough as jerky, I think Quiñonez might get the sub. So I'm kind of feeling the sub here. I don't know. Maybe it's just like something subconsciously I've seen in his fights. I'll go with Quiñonez there. But for minus 500, if you're thinking about taking a little bit on Moutinho, because it will be a dogfight, Quiñonez should be nowhere near those odds. Sometimes I can help you make a solid little dog play. So Moutinho, my heart's open very little to it. I don't think he wins. I'm telling you, I don't. But at those odds, you know what I mean? It's like, whatever. What's it going to cost you? So we'll see. Douglas Silva de Andrade, his name's cut off a little bit. Sorry about that. Dang. Don't know what happened there. I love this backdrop too. Versus Javier Reyes. Javier Reyes. Now, this is a tough one. This one I've been sitting on because Javier, I think, is completely awful. The guy's skill set is just completely lacking to me. I don't like what he brings to the table at all. Tall guy for the division. 5'10" for featherweight is pretty tall. Most of the guys are like 5'6", 5'7", maybe 5'8" at featherweight. Featherweight used to be like 5'8", 5'9", all those Connors of the world, I think Aldo was 5'7". Connor was 5'9" at featherweight, and he was on the longer side, not necessarily the taller, but he had long arms. 5'9" was a great height for that, and he cut a lot of weight too. So 5'10" at 145, Javier is cutting a ton of weight. I mean, but then again, he's not that athletic to me. He uses his size pretty well. He just storms the front, His Justice Torres performance, he stopped Justice, but Justice looks so much smaller than him. And I do feel like Andrade is going to be smaller than him, but Andrade is a guy you can't count out. And I know he's 40. Listen, he's 40. It's an elevation. He's just a muscle-bound guy. It looked like he lost a step against Miles Johns. Trust me, I'm there with you. But every time I doubt this guy, like I was like, Morozov is going to steamroll this guy. I think Morozov's a better fighter than Javier Reyes. Look what Andrade did to Morozov. And I know every year after 38, 39, 40, it just incrementally plays against you, especially when you're in a tough sport like this. But I got a weird feeling, man. I just have a weird feeling. I mean, look at Andrade's losses. You're talking about Douglas losing to guys like Peter Yan. I mean, these are the extent of his losses. Rob Font, I think, but that was a primed Rob Font years ago. In the recent times, I mean, the guy is pretty much trading wins and losses. Sure, the Miles Johns loss wasn't great, but look at what Miles Johns did to a young guy like John Matsumoto, who gave Farid all he could take. I think Farid would be a minus 500 against Javier Reyes. So when you put it into perspective like that, it's hard for me to take Reyes. I have a hard time taking the less skilled guy. And that's where, that is where the gambler's dilemma comes from. Do you take Reyes because he's 5'10", he's got a lot of reach on him, so he's got 3 inches of height, 5 inches of reach on Douglas. He's the younger man by a good margin, by a good 8 years, right? He's going to be storming the front. Andrade, I believe, is moving up here in weight? Or is Javier moving down? I don't know. Either way, it's tough because the weight doesn't so much matter, especially when the guy is more skilled in front of you. And I think that Douglas is far more skilled. He's fought far more competent guys. Torres on the Contender Series just looked like he was shooting for a takedown, couldn't get it, got hurt, gave up on the fight completely. Douglas is going to be in there. He doesn't give up. That Morozov fight was just stuck in my head. It's ingrained in my memory. He's one of those guys that does age, and he did look aged in his last one, don't get me wrong, but he's got the athleticism and the body type almost of a guy like Yoel Romero. Obviously not to that level, but he does seem like a guy who's going to look 30 something when he's 50. I mean, Andrade is an absolute tank of a guy. He's got real knockout power too. You can't sleep on that. He's just fought real veterans his whole career, durable guys his whole career. Reyes, I think, is open wide. He opens up wide, and if you throw a clean shot down the middle, I mean, I think Reyes can get dropped and rocked. And does he even have the skill set to like take Douglas down? If he is going to be bum rushing Douglas, I think Douglas can definitely take him out there. I am going to take Douglas Silva de Andrade in this one. It is a serious punt play. It doesn't even feel that bad to me. It's just in reanalyzing the metrics and seeing where these guys are at, seeing that Douglas has lost this up, seeing how much bigger Javier is, and he's probably more well trained at elevation just because of where he's from. I don't know though. It's worth the dog. You're talking about plus 180 for a guy in Andrade who's lost to the best of the best, and a guy in Javier Reyes who beat Justice Torres. It's like, who's that? A guy who is way smaller than him. And yes, Andrade is going to be smaller than Javier. Everyone is pretty much in that division. But you're talking about Andrade, who is just far more athletic than anyone he's ever fought, and who's more athletic than Reyes himself. Absolute tank of a man. Hits hard. He's a dual threat. He's got good grappling, solid wrestling. I just feel like Reyes, Andrade knows he's got to hurt this guy early and often. And Reyes is a finisher himself, but he leaves himself wide open. So it's really just a question of like, can Andrade land those shots early? Can he put enough doubt into Reyes's mind where that volume and that aggression just ceases? I think he can. It's a risky play. He's a 40-year-old guy. It's kind of like a test for Reyes, seeing like, can you beat a guy? But I don't know. Having Douglas Silva de Andrade on your resume would be a solid scalp for Reyes, and I just don't find him to be on that level. So it's a risk I'm willing to take. Trust me, I know Andrade is 40. I've already tabulated this card over and over again, and it is a risk I'm willing to take. So we'll take Douglas Silva de Andrade there. Sofia Montenegro versus Ernesta Kareckaite. I don't know how to say her last name. Doesn't matter. Ernesta, really good fighter and a fighter to really look out for. I think her only problem is going to be against girls who really try to wrestle her. Sofia's not that girl. Sofia likes to stand and trade. I think this is a big time fight for Ernesta where she can really show out, use that 3 inches of height, use that near 4 inch reach advantage. Sofia Montenegro, I took her confidently against that like Gisela Chavez on Contender Series. Chavez fought in the absolute bum can leagues and was fighting soccer moms. Came onto the Contender Series, definitely looked way better than she did in the regionals, but still gave Montenegro that work, man. Beat her up, won the fight. It was a bad look for Montenegro to take a beating like that from a woman who was 5-0 against absolute nobodies, excuse me. And that's not to say that Chavez isn't something talented. Maybe I'll bite my tongue if Chavez ends up becoming something great in the division. Sofia, if she does pull out some clutch takedowns or something like that, shows us some grappling we haven't quite seen in the past, sure, I'll take Sofia. But at this point, I really do like Ernesta in this one. I think it's a great matchup. Usually, more than 2.5 to 1, almost 3 to 1 is a no-go for me in women's MMA. And I still wouldn't put her on any parlays or anything like that, but I still feel like Ernesta is a fantastic option here. One of the better style matchups on the on the fight card. You even see the significant strikes she lands per minute. Very high volume, very voluminous. Has a win over Carly Judas. Split decision losses all across the board to girls who really try to grapple her. So if Sofia's just standing there in front of Ernesta at elevation where Ernesta is really going to shine because her volume, her cardio, it's just all there to be glorified in that elevation. I feel like she's a great play. I just feel like she's going to land like 200 significant strikes on Montenegro, something like that. Really like Ernesta in this one. That's all there is to it. Eric Silva versus Francis Marshall. I feel like Eric Silva, even though different spellings for Eric, that is like the most popular combination of first name, last name that we've ever seen in the UFC. There have been like so many Eric Silva. I think there's been like Jacob Silvas too, a couple of them. There's been a few Eric Silvas though. I know that for sure. This Eric Silva's a little different. I don't think this guy is very good at all. He's fighting Francis Marshall, who's also a pretty middling guy. When you look at Marshall's losses, even to guys like, Myron Santos, not a bad loss at all in retrospect. He did get smashed by Dolgarian pretty badly, but if Dolgarian's not throwing fights, he probably beats a lot of dudes and is going to be highly favored in a lot of his fights as well. Well, not in the UFC ever again, but Francis took a couple tough losses, but I feel like Eric Silva probably a closer style matchup to Marcelo Rojo that Francis Marshall fought than anybody else. And Eric Silva, the way he just got dusted by Nemov was embarrassing. Nemov just basically bum rushed him to the fence and just beat him down against the fence. I mean, Eric Silva's going on 39 years old. He doesn't have any advantages metrics wise, including height, including reach. Francis Marshall's got him covered. Eric Silva, it seems like he actually goes for takedowns when he gets desperate. That's not really going to work on Francis. He's a solid mid-tier wrestler himself. I think Francis also has good power in his hands, and I think the age of Eric Silva is going to really play against him in this one. I don't trust the cardio of Silva, especially at this age. Francis Marshall can keep a solid pace. And one thing about Marshall is when he's winning a fight and he is able to play the bully in there, he does very well. He performs very well. He can mix it up with the takedowns. He's got some good power boxing going on in there. I don't like the age of Silva. I don't like that performance against Nemov. I just don't like the way it's a way a guy loses. It's not always how he loses or who he loses to, but how he loses. It's just sorry, I think I just messed that up. It's not necessarily who he loses to, or when he loses. It's sometimes the how. That's much better. And how Eric Silva loses is bad. And that's bad against a guy like Francis Marshall, who can probably just bully him up against the fence, use the clinch work a little bit, outbox him, be the more powerful guy in there. So, yeah. Taking the shot on Francis Marshall. I'm taking a lot of big favorites here, but it seems like the odds makers, MMA in the past few years, Vegas has caught on to. When I was predicting MMA 10 years ago on YouTube, it was one of those things where it was like Vegas would never catch on. You know what I mean? They had Dustin Poirier as an underdog to Joe Duffy, for God's sake. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you contemplate, you think, you weigh it out. Francis Marshall, probably by finish if you want to play around just the straight play there. And then we move on. Damian Pinas versus Wes Schultz. Pinas? I don't know. But hopefully I said that right. So Wes Schultz, actually the taller guy here, actually has a good bit of reach too. 77 inches of reach to 79 inches. Now, 79 inches of reach at 6'1" is insane. For middleweight too, it's insane. Pinas' strike rate is also incredible. Not only is he dangerous and accurate and just a pure knockout artist, he's also got fantastic volume. We have not seen him tested in the wrestling. Thing about Wes Schultz, it seems like he's really a guy who thrives against strikers. He's really only lost to like better wrestlers, even against Mansour Abdul Malik on the Contender Series. He had his fair share of moments, man. He was getting beat up, and then he's beating up Mansour pretty badly, in fact. Just side control, dogging him out. Mansour's trying to get back to his feet on his knees. Wes Schultz dragging him down again, beating him up. Solid ground and pound. But Wes Schultz seems to gas himself pretty badly. If Wes Schultz had a good gas tank, I would 100% take him in this one. But it looks like Wes Schultz gasses out and doesn't hit hard enough on the ground for me to take him here. Damian Pinas is an absolute sharpshooter. It's very rare you see a guy at middleweight who is this long, this accurate. And I'm not going to compare him to Anderson Silva, because Anderson is just a one-of-a-kind fighter who will never be replicated. But Pinas, when you look at his hands, the hand speed, the accuracy, he touches dudes and they go. That's it. He touches dudes and they go. It's rare to see a guy like that. We have guys like Ateba Gautier, I believe, in the same division, who will stalk you, hit you. He hits hard, very concussive power. But Pinas has this strange, definitely concussive, but it's partially concussive, not because he just hits so hard, but because he's so accurate and he does hit hard. But it's so much more dangerous than even a guy like Gautier, I feel like, because Gautier is incredibly dangerous, but incredibly one-dimensional. And guys have sort of figured him out in angles. I mean, Pulev was able to survive and outstrike him. He got out-wrestled a bit on the Contender Series. Pinas is going to be trouble if we really do see Wes trying to test the wrestling gear and he can't get the guy down, because Wes is going to be shooting for his life in there. I think Damian is just too long, too strong, too accurate for Wes.
Part of me wants to take Wes as the dog, but seeing him gas even against Mansour, he had every shot in the world to finish Mansour Abdul Malik. He had the ground and pound going. It just, he was gassing himself out. So if he's just gassing himself out trying to take Piñas down, that's going to be even worse because all Damien has to do is just land one or two clean, and that's it. It might not even get to that. It might just be Piñas coming out of the gate, bang, bang, it's a wrap. 23 years old, this guy is. It's incredibly young, sophisticated striker, also high volume, which is good to see. Usually, guys like this aren't high volume because they're usually just throwing until one hits. This guy will throw a lot and hit you with everything damaging. And I mean, he's going to hurt Wes bad. Wes's only shot is to really grapple out of stuff, but I don't see him having the gas tank for that. So those are my thoughts. UFC Fight Night Mexico City. If you like the video, like it. Subscribing would be awesome. You can join me every week on these predictions. Full card predictions every week. 1 minute predictions when I feel confident in a lock. Good luck to you guys.